Welcome to episode 78 of the Ricky Henderson Podcast, the greatest of all podcasts. I'm Hal Gordon. Hot dog! And today I'm with my guest, Alex Espinoza.
Hot dog!
There he is. Yeah. All right, so two things different about this podcast. For the first time, obviously, this is Alex's podcast, but I wanted to, at least while we were still in the same country, I wanted to get the Alex Espinoza story.
Oh yeah!
And for those of you listening or watching on YouTube, you'll notice we are sitting next to each other.
I can touch Hal
in my backyard,
which I've always wanted to do on the pod.
Ooh, very nice. Yeah. So the reason why we're hanging out together is we got the Summer of Cell documentary crew with us here. We're talking to them about,
hence the lighting.
We got some really nice backlighting for this podcast.
Where's the clapper thing? Where's the clapper thing?
We started with the clapper. Yeah. It was great.
Look at this thing. This thing is official. Look at this thing.
Yeah,
look at that. Look at that. It says the Ricky Henderson Podcast on it. I love it.
But so we had Casey on earlier this week. Yeah. We thought we would, there's been a lot of news coming out fast and quick. So before we get into our interview of my guest, Alex Espinoza.
I'm happy to be on the pod.
Alex,
first time, long time. Yeah.
First time, long time. Yeah. Alex, we had two different news stories the last 2 days come out. Both, I think the first one was much bigger of a bombshell. ESPN. Mm-hmm. They had. We finally heard somebody interview John Fisher who wasn't a stooge.
Well, he interviewed him. I think he broke up his interview into like multiple parts or something, because he published an article like a month ago or something, but it was kind of like along the same lines. But this one was a little bit more revealing, I guess.
This is Tim Keown. I don't know.
Yeah, Tim Keown. I don't know if it's Keown or Keown.
Yeah,
Keown. Yeah. And it was a great article. Really good.
If you haven't read the article, obviously, obviously you probably should watch it. Casey had an amazing interview with him, with Tim, the night afterwards. And, it's just, it was so well sourced. They talked to everybody in Oakland government. Oakland government was, the mayor,
Sheng
Tao.
Yeah, I just liked how comprehensive it was. Like, it really talked about a lot of stuff. Like, talked about the Giants. Like, it touched on pretty much every major thing. Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
It's impossible to read that article and feel like, oh yeah, Oakland, we lost our team, but we were dealing with honest brokers. It's infuriating.
Yeah. And that's kind of the vibe I've got the whole time. But basically, every time that we hear from the A's, it gets worse for me. It doesn't get any better. Like, I think they're trying to cover their tracks, but every time leadership talks or Kaval talks, or they give Fisher the okay to talk to another person, but not on camera. I think it just gets worse, and it just further proves that these guys there is no deeper layer. Like, these guys are just idiots. That's it.
I think the root of the issue for the A's right now is that they decided that they can make more money in Las Vegas, right? Yeah. And the rules.
I think it's just easier for them to get a stadium.
Right.
Vegas.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing.
Right. They're not good at this.
No.
And, when I do something that I'm not good at, I like to pick the easy way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're just obviously not good at this. And it's just infuriating because the rules of relocation, of MLB relocation, do not say, you can relocate if you think it'll be a little bit easier, or if you think you can make some money.
Yeah.
More money there, right? It says you cannot get a stadium in your current market, and it's just so disappointing.
Like, you mean so that's when it goes back to like all the stuff they were saying about Coliseum site not being viable. They're like, hey, we exhausted all our options, Yeah. And then that's where they're trying to paint it like, we had nothing at Howard Terminal, when they clearly did, and Kaval was telling you how much progress they had made until it wasn't convenient for them.
Dave Kaval thought about trying to build a stadium at the Coliseum. He decided it would be exhausting. And he said, well, we've exhausted all of our attempts.
That's not how it works. That's like Steve Carell saying, we declare bankruptcy. Like, right. No, dude, that's not how it works.
Really. He's like, that's right. He's like, I declare.
Yeah, we exhausted that option.
Exhausted!
I am exhausted, yeah.
It's just terrible. And then we had then we had Scott Osler come out with an article today in the Chronicle where he had very similar quotes from the mayor and from the mayor's chief of staff, Leah Hansen. Well, I'll say Leah Hansen has had some pretty good quotes. In the ESPN article, she said, "I don't think." What she said?
I don't think they got cold feet. I think they got an accountant.
They got an accountant, and
like they didn't have the money for that shit.
I will say this. I will say this. When I was selling hot dogs last year, there would be some fans who, were friendlier with Dave Kaval and stuff and had more information, and that kind of stuff lines up with what they were saying. That kind of stuff is they were just saying is that John Fisher just visions himself as this man who's going to make his own money, so he won't be just some Nepo baby anymore. He'll have made his own money.
It's too late.
And he's, but when it comes, when the rubber hits the road, both Kaval and John Fisher they're not real estate developers, right? And of course they got to the point where they realized, this was too expensive, it was too difficult for us. And, that's... Yeah. I think Tim Keown, he was saying, I'm just going to say Keown because I don't really know his last name. But he was saying, I'm just so... Or he was saying that, John Fisher was irritated when he would say, why don't you sell the team? Because Fisher views himself as this Bay Area guy who, if he can't do it, no one can. And so it was making him mad when he was asking, well, other people think they can do it here.
Joe Lacob. Yeah.
Right? It's just...
Dude, I think he would... Yeah, honestly, the thing that pissed me off the most about these most recent articles is, I think it was ESPN that Rob Manfred was quoted as saying, if we were so close, why didn't she just pony up the $100 million, like the city of Oakland? And then I think I saw a tweet. It was like, dude, Oakland was in a record deficit of $360 million at this time. They're not just gonna pull it out. And literally, John Fisher could probably just scrounge that up. Make a couple phone calls. If not, just go to his bank account, ask mom and dad, and come up with that $100 million.
That shit is just an excuse, man. That shit is just an excuse now because
Manfred just wants to do his Fisher's bidding. Manfred is clearly a puppet at this point. I mean, I get that's the job of the commissioner is to do it, but you would hope that there was a better steward of the game and not just a steward of 30 rich billionaires. Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. He doesn't care about the game. He just cares about making his 30 dudes happy, and then he's gonna retire, in his huge penthouse apartment in New York and not give a shit.
Like we talked about on the last podcast, this has already paid huge dividends for them because, they got Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin bent over backwards.
$700 million
to refurbish a stadium that I've been to plenty of games at Miller Park, and it's a gorgeous place to watch a baseball game.
It was built in 2000 or 2001, right?
It's Something 20 years old. Insane. Then they got a new building for the Rays in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
And, they already have this $600 million in Baltimore. I mean, this is just going to pay off for them in spades.
Yeah, so. like we were saying on the podcast with Casey a couple days ago, it's other owners, or Rob Manfred now has a card. He's like, yo, if you guys don't fall in line, or to kind of pitch to cities, hey, if you don't fall in line, you're going to lose your beloved team. And
but for the grace of God, go you, as he points to Oakland.
Yeah, I mean, it's 55 years, so what's... a market like Tampa Bay, what's 20 years of history? If 55 is nothing, then what's 20? It's
that's what I mean. That's what crushes me is when I was Hal the hot dog guy, I got to know so many fans, and so many people would, there would be so many people who would tell me I've been sitting, I sat in this very seat on opening day 55 years ago when my dad brought me, and obviously a lot of fans are not 55 years old, so they've been there for their entire lives.
I feel lucky. Yes, I'm 36, and I remember going to games when I was probably 5 years old. I still lived in Alameda at the time, so it was a 10-15 minute drive. But I look back at it now, I was like, holy shit, I saw like half of the A's time here, basically. And I got to see it. Or even more, like probably like a good 30 years of the 55 I actually have, memories of. And it doesn't seem like it's that long, but now I'm looking back, I'm like, holy shit, yeah, I saw all this stuff, like late 90s, like Geronimo Barroa, like pretty much, like, I was watching the team before they traded Mark McGwire and stuff. I feel like the McGwire trade was the beginning of this. Oh, we'll trade literally anybody who's good. Yeah.
Oh man, it's just
fuck, still bitter. I don't know.
I mean, what makes me just mad is that like that they can just that this has died. I've said this so many times on the pod. This has died not because Oakland doesn't want it, not because Oakland hasn't done everything that they can to make it work, like responsibly, but it's died because this nepo baby, just like he's like, this was harder than I thought it was going to be, and I can and so many of the quotes. I mean,
I just think
John Fisher's quotes, like, I mean, hilarious quote where he was complaining multiple times about how he had to pay bonus money.
Yeah.
He should have had, if it wasn't for the draft, he would have had to pay the second draft pick. Instead, he only had to pay the sixth draft pick.
He was actually happy.
I'm sure.
But even still, he was still complaining. It's like, fuck, we got to pay this top 10
we're
draft
losing
pick.
$5 million because we have to pay this. If you sell the team, you won't have to pay that guy.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, obviously the one that really just cut deep was, excuse me, the one that really cut deep was when he said, "I view myself." He's been coached. Michelle, what's her name? Michelle Aker, is that?
Catherine Aker.
Catherine Aker.
Yeah.
Catherine Aker was in there. I'm saying, remember, you're the steward of the team. So he's like, I view myself as the steward of this team.
Remember when he did the interview
owner.
with Raj Mathai and he had to write down the 3 names? It was like Zach Geloff, Tyler Soderstrom, Mark Kotsay.
First base.
Yeah.
Second
Young
base.
guys we're excited about. The manager
plate.
who's going to get fired in a couple of years.
Yeah,
or whatever.
and he's calling himself a steward, and he's like, and I'm excited to be that steward in a place where I think I'll make more money. Yeah. Like, what an asshole. What an asshole. Anyway.
I think he's as bad as we thought, if not worse. I think it's pretty much what we expect. Like, I haven't been caught off guard. Maybe a little thing. He's like, what? It was my decision, and I took him out of there. But then he also said, like, in that interview with Mick Akers a couple weeks ago, they were like, how come you don't take questions? He's like, oh, because David Force and who, like Billy Bean and Dave Kaval, like they're the ones making the decisions, and but it's like, dude, well, you can't say you're the one making the decision and ripping the team out and then not. It's like, there has to be some sort of accountability somewhere. You would hope.
That's not true. That's not true at all. He makes the decisions. I remember talking to somebody who worked in the ticket office back right at the end of 2021. When they basically announced that there was going to be no more A's Access in 2022.
Shout out to A's Access. You still got it.
A's Access button. I have that button.
$3 hot dogs in 2019. That's like unheard of. Yeah.
I do have that physical button somewhere.
Yeah.
But when they were like obviously going to raise prices, and I talked to somebody in the ticket office before the game, and he just looked. I was like, "What happened?" And he just looked at me. He goes, "One man made this decision." So.
That was a bad decision, Hal. You shouldn't have done that.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I wanted more than $3 per hot dog.
Yeah. Like, how come Hal's are $4 with A's Access?
Yeah. So, all right. Before we get to the meat of this, I'll also say too. I went yesterday. I went on a Twitter spree. Thinking
I was actually I was at a 49ers game and people were like, "What's up with your boy Hal?" People were asking me about your tweets.
I was tweeting like
making
crazy.
The waves.
I was tweeting like crazy. Well, so I think, I think like where does the movement go from here? I'm constantly saying
I'm the wrong guy to ask, dude. I'm checking out.
Listen, I'm constantly saying we need to think about helping fund the Nevada prop, but yeah. Other than that. One thing I think
because it sounds like that's the only. I mean, like
it's the only way to stop them. To force them to sell.
Chance to actually have any recourse, right? Is to fund that schools over stadiums measure, as far as we know. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we should do a real boycott and we should do it for opening day next season.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of time, and we should see. I mean, I might be setting myself up for a lot of work, but
yeah,
but like let's like we. I think
the 68s they pulled it off for June 13th.
The 68s are an amazing resource. They are ready to go. They're mad. I think if we can figure out like a venue to like have an alternate event on opening night, and we outdraw the A's, like
it would be
sick, and we'd rob. We'd when do you have a chance of robbing someone who you hate of $2 million?
Yeah.
Not awful.
Well, because they said June 13th, I think it was like 27,000, but they had a gate of like $811,000
Yeah,
or something like that.
But that's
right?
not counting. That's not counting all the food. That's not counting all the parking. That's not counting the souvenirs. An opening night, people buy a lot of shit.
Yeah.
I know, right? Like from vending, opening night's great because it's a big crowd, but also everybody's buying on opening night.
Well, I was telling you before this off camera, I think there's going to be some hesitation on people's part because they're going to be like, this might be the last opening day I could ever attend.
Yeah, and I understand
I think
that.
some people, and
I won't begrudge that.
I'm still a sucker for the pageantry of opening day. Like, I know it's stupid. Basically, the only difference, they have the bunting. They have the red, white, and blue little things or whatever, and they come out for the opening lineup.
I'll go to Home Depot. I'll buy some bunting.
Yeah,
I'll buy some bunting. Wherever we do it, we'll put up some bunting.
It'll be opening day. We should do it the next day.
Yeah, so we'll see if that happens or not. There's a lot of time.
But I understand, like, yeah, if you could somehow have an event that outdrew the actual game, that would be badass.
That would be great. It would be really sick. That would be like you'd get that on the news, just like how these Unite the Bays and the reverse boycott got on the news. And
I was gonna say, like, shout out to the 68s. I think for not basically having any voice in this thing. I guess they do have a small voice, but I don't know how much impact it'll have, just because it's hard to stop this huge machine that's MLB, but they made their voice. They made it happen this summer.
That's what I've always said. I've always said it worked,
man. It worked. Like, or at least as far as if their goal was to get exposure, it worked. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've embarrassed the shit out of these guys, and they're gonna live with that for a long time. They both Kaval and Fisher. They're from the Bay. They live in the Bay. And I'm sure
Kaval's from like Cleveland or something.
Yeah, but he's lived here since he was in graduate school, so he's from the Bay.
We don't claim him, bro. No.
Well, yeah, fine. Well, fine.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I know what you mean. All their friends are from here, Like,
he went to Stanford, which he'll gladly tell you.
Half the reason why John Fisher, I bet, did those interviews was I bet he was tired of like having his friends, kind of like look at him and be like, why don't you just sell the team, like.
Yeah. Well, if he's trying to defend himself like he's a good person, I think he's failed.
I think. He did not do himself any.
I understand why they told Kaval to shut up, because I think that was like their soundest PR strategy. Because every time him or
whenever
Fisher talks, it's like they just keep on digging the hole deeper, dude. It just gets worse. Yeah.
It's been awful. But Jeff Passan of ESPN in his sort of end of season roundup.
That was good. That was a good.
He said, he's like, play of the season, blah blah blah, and so he said, quote of the season, sell the team.
Yeah.
So I think from
shout out to Jeff Passan for
we were here, we mattered, we will rise again as a sports team, as a sports city, and as a community.
Oakland Roots, baby.
Oakland Roots fucking rule, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Let's talk about Alex, right? So, Alex,
far less interesting.
This has been your podcast. This was your baby. I'll say, I think I had seen some of your tweets. I'd seen some of what you'd done on A's Twitter, and then at the beginning of the 2021 season, you reached out to me and you said, "Hey, man, like, would you come on my podcast?" And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I love talking about myself. But it was great, man.
That.
It was great. I had so much fun talking to you. And then after I talked to you, I'd been...
Well, I remember we did playback. It was like me and Shannon were doing like
that was
the
that was
alternate
later,
broadcast
yeah.
of the games, and you would hop on and you would stay on for like innings. Like you were on for like over an hour, like a couple hours, and I was like, oh shit, how's he's into this.
Yeah, dude. I'll say this: when you first interviewed me, I had a great time talking to you about it, and then, when I was Hal the Hot Dog Guy, my connection to the A's was I knew all the people behind home plate, right? Like all those,
the ladies that are like right next to the dugout. Like
oh yeah, dude.
Ladies.
Oh,
yeah. I forget their names, but they were
super.
I always talk to them before the game.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. They'll take one of those ladies takes pictures of me would take pictures like a creep, like from three sections away, and physically develop them, and then hand them to me, and I'd be like, "What am I supposed?" So I got a bunch of them on my fridge.
Just pictures of yourself.
Yeah, but so that was my connection to the A's. I was vending every game, so I never watched home games, and I wasn't really watching too many away games. There's just it was this great window into getting to understand A's fandom better, and so after we did it, I remember I went back and I listened to all of your back podcasts and stuff, and that was so much fun. And then I felt like following your Twitter account was great. It
used to be a good account. I used to put some effort into it.
You used to put a lot of effort into it, and there'd be all these great gifs, and you put all these highlight reels
that's
together.
why I did it, because I realized dude, nobody even documents what's happening with this team right now. It's just, and there's only two accounts basically who do video. It's the A's NBC account and the actual A's account, but there's highlight restrictions there, so they couldn't do it. So I was like, dude, there's a massive void here. And there's literally no highlights on YouTube. Yeah. So I was like, I'll be like an A's historian. I was like, that's pretty much what you do now. You just put stuff on YouTube. So I did it for a couple years, but then after April 19th, I just...
Well, yeah. After April 19th, we stopped. After June 15th.
Or June 3rd, yeah.
When they stopped,
June 13th,
when Vegas voted for it, it was tough, But yeah, I just want to know more about Alex. So you're starting to get into it. When you were 5, you started going to games.
Yeah, so I was born in Oakland. I was raised in Alameda until I was about 6 years old, and I moved to Moraga. So I've been in the East Bay my whole life, and my brother, he's 2 years older than me. He's obsessed with the A's, and of course, when you're a little kid, you just follow whatever he does. So. But I don't know. I just remember from a very young age, the Coliseum gave me this special feeling that I can't duplicate anymore. I knew I was just having a great time. A's game, Raiders game, running out to the field for fireworks, whatever it was. There was nothing like going to a Coliseum game. I remember they still had the orange seats when I was still there. So this is before the '96 Mount Davis, renovation or whatever. But yeah, and then I really became obsessed around 6th or 7th grade, around 2000, 2001, because they had those incredible teams, and it doesn't really stop. And then I realized what journalism was. So in middle school, I started doing sports journalism, and pretty much.
And you did sports. You started doing journalism because you wanted to do sports journalism, right?
Yeah, I started writing for my school newspaper in 7th grade. Yeah, doing sports. Yeah.
And so were you writing about the A's and the Raiders and stuff?
Yeah, the Raiders. I remember, I think my very first article ever, it was 2000. They were doing the Sydney Olympics. So I was writing something about the Sydney Olympics. But I don't know, it was 7th grade school newspaper. Right. So it's nothing. But that was my first, and then I started covering high school games when I was in high school. And then my first job out of college was to cover the A's for MLB.com as an intern for the summer. It was in 2010. And I was like, holy shit, I want to be a beat writer. That was always my dream. I wanted to cover the team day to day. And as I got older, I realized I wanted to travel the country on somebody else's dime. That was the real reason I wanted to do it. But that never really happened. I think there at its peak there was probably 4 or 5 beat writers. Now there's only 2, so it's
I'm not sure there's even any beat.
It's Martine. Actually, it's pretty much Martine.
Who's paid for by Major League Baseball.
Yeah. So.
There's no independent beat writers for these. We'll get into that. But so you interned for the A's out of college or before college?
It was out of college. So they have a program, a summer program, where they go around the college campuses talking to people and. So I got offered the A's job. I was like, hell yeah, this is my dream.
It's a dream.
So yeah, I was 23, and I think I was telling you last week, it was My first week I ever worked. The last week I thought it was gonna be like a lazy Sunday or whatever, and then
Mother's Day.
Yeah, Mother's Day. Yeah, Dallas Braden. There was like 12,000 people there. Dallas Braden threw a perfect game, and I was like, in the 7th inning, they were like, "All right, you got to write the game story." I was like, "What? Like,
how can I write the game story in the 7th inning?"
I was like, I wasn't expecting this. So like, I don't know. It was a fun introduction, but I remember asking Dallas some questions after that game, and of course, you know, there's only been I think 24 or 25 of them, so I'm probably never gonna cover one ever again. And it was like I was in the middle of that opportunity, like right when it started. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, where did you end up after that? How did you? Because you've still been doing sports journalism.
Yeah, basically like since 2013. Yeah. So after that, I wrote for a newspaper in Yuma, Arizona for 6 months.
Okay. Yeah. Down like
the Yuma sun, baby.
Lettuce country.
Yeah, I don't even know what's down there. It's just dirt, man. I mean, that's like why I left.
I think whenever you buy lettuce in the winter and spring, it's all from Yuma, Arizona.
Yeah. But I mean, the cool thing was that Jose Canseco and his twin brother were player, manager, player, coach, whatever. So he was 47 years old at the time. So I got to cover Jose Canseco when he was 47.
It was,
he put himself in the pitch, but he was injured all the time and shit. And at one point I went to his house and interviewed him and his brother at his house. So that was pretty cool. Like I'll always remember that experience. I remember Tony Phillips, he died a couple of years ago, or a few years ago, but he's an old A's infielder. He came out there, he was 48, and he was playing for the team too. So I was like,
oh man,
what is going? It was actually a very cool experience, but eventually the heat and the lack of anything to do, I was like, all right, I tried, and then I got an internship with the Niners, and then since then I've worked for pretty much like every Bay Area news group organization, or like MLB.com, The Athletic, Associated Press, all over.
It's just I mean, like, well, let's talk about what it's like to try and cover the A's, but like it's just a tough time to be in journalism and in sports journalism.
Well, yeah, even in like the past like 13 years I've been involved, it's you can see the opportunities just shrinking. Yeah. You know, I mean, take the A's beat for example. Like when I first started, I think there was probably like 4 or 5. Because Casey was like the A's insider for NBC,
okay.
And he's not there. There was a writer for MLB, a writer for the Chronicle, Bay Area News Group, some other blogs like I think Sports Illustrated had John Hickey was there for them, but and now there's one guy who covers the team and he's like a team employee basically.
Yeah, he's a team employee, so it's not it's like I had
a freelance for him like last week, and I'm doing PR for them. I couldn't even really mention like Bob Melvin was back. I couldn't mention like he left because there was a shit show was impending. Yeah.
It's it's the same thing with. I mean, it's what's just been tough is just seeing how much damage they've done to this fan base, right? The fan base used to be huge. It used to be the East Bay, right? Yeah. And it's gotten to a point, the ownership.
I mean, I think in the 90s they drew over 2 million, which I know the 3 million is like the marker now, but
compared to other things, they were at the top of the heat, man. They were in the top 5.
I think in like 90 or 91 they were like at the close of like leading the league in payroll. Like that was with the Walter Haas, his family, and I think their attendance was really good. Like they had 2.3 million, I want to say, something like that. And they haven't touched that.
Yeah, they were crushing the Giants. They were crushing the Giants. The Giants were getting crushed so bad that
were they? I don't know. Were they ever? Like,
they beat the Giants.
I didn't know that.
They beat the Giants for about 5 years straight then. Uh-huh. And the Giants were looking to move to St. Petersburg.
Yeah,
they were going to be the Tampa Bay Giants.
I mean, there's that picture of like Brandon Crawford, like as a little kid, saying like, "Don't sell the team," and then and it's like it's all repeating, dude. It's all happening again, dude.
Well, except for John Fisher, then was part of the group that saved the Giants.
Yeah, that's true.
What an ass.
Well, that's the thing. Is like the only public appearances Fisher's made, or I remember, I think it was last year. He was at a game with Larry Baer, like sitting in a box with them. So it's like, oh, they're just chumming it up. Like even though. Like Larry Baer's lawyer, Ronald Van Buskirk, is trying to stop this. With East Oakland Stadium Alliance, Stand Up for San Jose, they're still chummy. So I guess it doesn't really matter. I don't think John really cares if they stay in Oakland or not.
So tell me about founding. Why did you start? It was first a blog, the Ricky Henderson of blogs, the greatest of all blogs.
Yeah.
Right. trademark.
Yeah.
And then it became the Ricky Henderson of all podcasts, the greatest of all podcasts.
It was just like a
trademark.
Yeah. We haven't asked Ricky yet. But
come at us, bro.
Yeah. 2010. Yeah, 2020.
So 2020, like really you had a lot of time in your hands.
Yeah, and so I was like, you know what? There's nobody doing highlights up to the standard that I think is worth doing. I was like, I'm gonna do it. And that's funny because I was just streaming the game, cutting my own highlights, but then I got courted by NBC Sports Bay Area. And then once I got hired, the social media manager was like, dude, we've been seeing your account. Like, you just been ripping our feed off this whole time. I was like, oh, this is a fucking con. You wanted me to stop doing these highlights. But no, it was... but yeah, so then I picked up some other... So during the pandemic, I had a lot of time, but then the past couple of years, I've had full-time jobs. So it was like trying to do this on top of the job is hard, but... So that's why I'm kind of like hit or miss. Like sometimes I'm really into it, other times I don't have time for it. But
and it's tough. Yeah. It's tough because I would say before I joined I mean like there's A's Cast, which is basically Pravda. It's government A's radio.
Yeah. And it's like daily too. It's not.
It's like, daily and it's
It doesn't have a long shelf life.
Yeah, who cares, right?
I was trying to do content that had a good shelf life. Right. Like people know who Ken Korak is, but like, do people know like where his trademark? The lights are starting to take effect. How did that come to be? Like I wanted to learn that myself.
You started to become like the A's historian. I think there was. So I remember when I was trying to get into, trying to like learn more and stuff, just was trying to voraciously consume more A's stuff, especially when they're good, there was like A's Cast, fine, right? Like we didn't even have like a real radio station, right? There's no company, the fan base has been so strangled. That like,
dude, there was one year where they tried to go online only, and they were like, everybody's like, no.
They tried to go online. Like,
people still drive cars.
Literally, no radio station wants to have talk about the A's, right? So like, they did it themselves.
Yeah, and working at a current radio station right now, I can confirm. Yeah,
you're right. Yeah, of course. Like, when the A's produce it, it's like, I mean, nobody, like, everyone wants to know about the stuff that they don't talk about. Yeah,
fine. People want to know about the stadium, but people like. Like, if I wrote an article on NBC Sports Bay Area and I wrote about the stadium, it might get decent numbers. But if I wrote, like, oh, Zach Geloff's having a great homestand, like, nobody's clicking on
right.
that. Yeah,
and
nobody cares about their actual product,
Yeah, and so because why would you care about it if you think that that Zach Geloff's gonna
trade guys,
that they're gonna trade them, or Zach Geloff's gonna have Las Vegas on his chest, But okay, so then there's that. Then there's Jason. Well, he had. The Lockdown A's.
Yeah, Lockdown A's, yeah.
And then after that, I just felt like it was definitely your podcast. And what's so frustrating about it all is that like you were putting out such an amazing product, putting out all these great tweets, and it's just they've taken the fandom and just strangled it in a bathtub. And so there's just like if you had the number two, like Detroit Tigers podcast, right?
Yeah.
Like you'd have some good stuff, right? Like if you had the number 2 Mets podcast, like you'd be doing it. But we're just, what's frustrating is there's just not enough.
Yeah, there's no appetite for A's news.
There's no appetite for A's news because it's all so depressing. No one wants to fall in love with these players after they've been...
I think it's like this negative feedback loop. Like it starts with the ownership. Like ownership doesn't put money into the product, so the product's not great. And then media companies start covering less because fans don't care, so there's less interest.
Yeah. And
then the media attention stops, and then the fan interest keeps on dwindling. The product gets worse, so it's just like this feedback loop of like everything just getting worse and worse, and that's been happening for decades now. It's like when you trade away Tim Hudson and Mark Mulder and in the same offseason, like people are going to be shocked and stop coming to your games, and then you might win them back again, but it's like you can only how many they've done that maybe 4, 5, 6 times since the past 20 years, and people just are like. You run out of patience eventually, and it's just not worth your time or commitment. If they're not going to commit to you, then what's the point? Yeah.
I think when I sit here, I mean, we've talked about being mad and being sad about everything that's happened to the team a lot, but I remember we got a drink at a bar at the beginning of this season. So that was before we knew the news that they were going to leave.
Vegas, yeah.
But it was after I'd called you up and I said, Alex, let me on your podcast. I want to be your co-host just because I love your podcast so much. I want to make sure it gets, we keep doing it. So we were getting a drink, and and you were just saying, Hal, I just want to. The thing I want from my life is I just want to be able to cover my favorite sports team, and make enough money to afford dinner.
Yeah.
And it's just so frustrating because you think like that should be possible. Like if you have so much talent for this and so much passion, and you saw this thing that didn't exist, like being the historian of the Oakland A's, like that should be a thing that you can buy dinner with.
Yeah, but people just don't care, dude. Like, I don't know. There's just not the most support I feel like I've seen for A's fans has just been since everything's gone south and hit the fan, like all the sell the team stuff. But it's almost like it's too little, too late kind of a thing, And I don't think anybody realized fully what was going on here. They just. And the A's are good at pushing out this small market narrative, and then you take a step back, you're like, dude, some of the richest zip codes in America are right here in the East Bay.
It's insane.
Or in the Bay Area.
They should not be a small market team.
Yeah, no, you have access. Even if you have less people, the people who are here have probably 2 times more money than the average person in Texas, or whatever it is. And so the whole small market thing kind of. I think it probably started from Moneyball, because that's easy way to describe it. But then you look back at the actual market, it's it's not a small market. It's the top 10 for sure. Even if you're splitting it, there's so much money here. So
there's so much money. There's so much prestige. There's so much power. There's so much history. I was getting a drink last night with a friend of mine who grew up in Livermore, and he went to a ton of A's games. He just read that ESPN article, and he was just really steamed and mad about it. And, I just was sitting there feeling a little bit sorry for myself too, right? Where just I feel like you should be able to, make this work with the kind of great work that you did. Like the incredible luck of somehow becoming a semi-famous stadium vendor that people cared about. I mean, what was so lucky about it was being able to spread joy. There's just you don't get to do that's not replicatable. It's not what I had there is not replicatable anywhere else. It's not something that I'll ever have the chance to do again. You can bring joy to people in your lives, but it was such a privilege to be able to just be part of strangers' lives, like that. And it was so much fun. And it's so frustrating to see it end this way. To see it end with this just this baby, this nepo baby who's just I'm taking my ball and going to Las Vegas, and who cares? And if you tell me that someone else could make it happen, then you're wrong. Whatever.
Well, that's what I was I think I told Dan Moore this. It was it's like the Hamburglar is robbing your house. Totally incompetent idiot is robbing your house, and you're powerless to stop them. You're just well, fuck, I'm tied up. I can't do anything. And the Hamburglar is just taking all your stuff. And you see him, he looks like a mascot. He looks like a dumb idiot. But you can't stop the guy. And we're getting robbed by the Hamburglar, dude.
It's so frustrating. Yeah. But onward to, maybe not what I think we would all have first choices for what we do, but I'm so
if
excited.
I had my way, if I had a dream job, I'd be covering the A's, 6 months out of the year, then spending winter in South America or something like that.
Cool.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
That'd be great.
But you're gonna be you have your flight. You're moving to Mexico after the end of the season.
Yeah. October 4th. Yep, I'm heading out. Got a one-way ticket to Mexico, so we'll see.
How's your Spanish?
Es más o menos.
Okay, it's gonna become better over the next couple months. And so, what's your plan?
We are yet to find out. I'm gonna take like the first month off to just kind of dick around and have some fun. And then after that, I'll probably, because I have enough money saved up I could probably just live a year, just be an absolute bum and just do nothing. But I kind of want to not just waste all my money in a year.
Sounds like a plan.
So I'll probably just find some sort of digital work. Who knows? Maybe keep doing the pod.
Yeah, I think
maybe you could come down to Mexico. We can just do the pod down there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Give the report from Oaxaca.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do a little. I'm just gonna be at a little beach town of like a few, like probably like 2,000 or 3,000 people, and
cool, man.
Just unplugging from social media. I've been working in social media for the past 13 years. I don't think it's good for mental health for anybody to be doing that.
It can't be.
So. Yeah, just like and going back to being a fan and just like once the game's off, just turning off the TV and that's it instead of having to
Great.
That's when your workday starts,
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that, and then just trying to live a simpler life basically. I'm just gonna be, probably like try to learn how to surf, do some hiking. I don't know. It's like really simple life. Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, I think this pod may or may not die again.
We'll see.
Think we'll have.
Well, it always keeps.
We're gonna have at least one more episode.
Going.
Yeah, Sunday. So Sunday we're filming this Friday. Sunday, I think we're gonna go out to the park and interview people in the parking lot again and just sort of cry.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be. I think it'll be sad. Fun. I think it'll be fun.
It'll be fun. It'll be sad, but
it'll be fun.
But we'll hopefully, especially if we keep the pressure on in the off season, maybe we'll do one before the owners meeting. Maybe I'll be the American correspondent.
Well, see, that's what I understand.
Send me to Nashville.
People are saying November, but I think I googled it. It's like December 4th to December 7th this year is actually when it is. So I don't know if they going to call a special meeting.
They'll probably just do it over Zoom and just to screw everyone, whatever. But we'll figure it out. And listen, the A's community might be done, but the Oakland sports community. That's the thing we cheer, right? Yeah. Let's go Oakland. So we're going to keep cheering that. We'll cheer it at Roots games. We'll cheer it at other teams' games that may or may not exist yet. And, they may or may not be Major League Baseball.
Soul, baby.
Yeah. They may or may not be whatever. But, this community is too important and too tight-knit, I think, to die by John Fisher's hands.
Yeah,
so
I would hope so.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for letting me on your pod.
Well, thank you for letting me on your pod, dude. Yeah, this is your pod now.
For tonight only.
All right.
All right. Cool. All right. Thanks so much, guys. We'll talk to you again next week with some fan interviews from the last game at the Coliseum for the 2023 season.
Yep.
See ya.
All right.